Setlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Welcome back to the Tim and Steve Show. I am Tim Beard.
I'm Steve Morris.
How's it going, Steve?
Pretty good. How about you?
Not bad. I'm going to start the show and apologize right from the get-go because there's a chance I may have more coughing fits today. Seems like everything's working its way up my lungs and kind of like in this, kind of nasally, but, and it doesn't, like when you cough, it doesn't really, there's nothing really there. It's not fun. I'm glad it's almost over. I mean, I'm probably back to like 95%, but man, what a nasty bunch of crap to get.
Yeah, I wonder what it is.
I don't know. I mean, my daughter was tested and she didn't have COVID, she didn't have flu, there's nothing. So, well, she had pneumonia, but it's got to be just some virus going around. And I guess there's like a lot of stuff going around. Not fun, not cool, not, I don't know. I just don't remember getting sick like this in the past, like as often. Like, you know, you get colds and it's winter, it's common, it's New England. I just don't remember getting this kind of stuff.
I started coughing yesterday and sneezing at the same time. I don't even necessarily know if it's like physically impossible to do both simultaneously, but it was, if not simultaneous, it was one right after the other. And, you know, I have this rib issue because I coughed either broke my rib or ripped a muscle or something down there, and it did not feel good.
No. I mean, I felt so bad. Like, Adelina, who's potty trained, like this whole time she's been sick, we've had her on pull-ups because, you know, she'd have a coughing fit and pee. It's harder for, obviously, for females. Or, you know, she had, like, you know, diarrhea, just sick, you know, just horrible. And, you know, it was just a horrible, horrible thing. Luckily, I didn't have, you know, I haven't coughed and peed myself, but I feel bad for her. And I always feel bad for her, right? Like, you're, as a dad, you're like, I wish I could take away the sickness. Like, I'll take it, but she's much better. She's back to herself for the most part, but she still has a little cough here and there. And now I'm really going through it. I just feel horrible for her. I'm like, oh my God, I know what you're going through because, oh.
Yeah, it's not fun.
So the plan is after this is I'm gonna start like hammering vitamins into my body as like a normal.
Is that going to be? Are you going to wash that down with a Coca-Cola?
For the record, Steve has one over there.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have a bottle of water. It's nice and chilled because I turned the heat down. And what is this, about 50-degree water here? Maybe 48?
I know. I started to come up the stairs this morning, and I was like, oh, no. Because all week it's been great. I've come up here, and it's been warm. It's been perfect.
It was too hot yesterday.
And Steve's like, it was too hot yesterday, so I turned it down, and it's still chilly in here. My hands are cold. But there's no happy medium, is there? I think we need to take that little thermostat thing that you have that says warm. There's no numbers on it. Maybe we can get one for you that's like a number one. So it's like, hey, let's keep it 65 or something. Because right now because some days you'll come up here and it's the same temperature. You haven't moved it. And it's like, oh my God, we have to open a window. It's 100. And other times it's like, why is it not on? It's chilly.
I don't know. I thought I got a decent one too. Maybe not. You don't seem to like it very much.
Well, this room isn't. What's your garage? We figured it out one day because when I was going to build mine, I based it kind of off yours. I think this thing was like 18 by like 30 or something like that. You know, the 8-foot ceilings up here. That heater should heat like it should be like 5 minutes. It's hot up here, but it doesn't seem to do that, which is odd.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe it needs to like have someone look at it. Like it needs like a
it's
service.
Brand new.
Yeah.
It's only a year old, a year and a half.
Oh, so you guys put it in?
Yeah.
Had it put in? Huh.
The one that was up here was junk.
So maybe
like our second year, so it's maybe 2 years old.
So maybe I'll look up the brand of it. Maybe we can get some information on it, and maybe there's just something not set right. Because
could be.
I mean, I had a heater that size that used to heat a shop that was 40 feet long and like 20 feet wide. Like, it's good size. Obviously, it didn't heat it fantastic because it was under, but this should heat it quick up here.
I'll I almost wore that shirt today, by the way.
Yeah, this is the one you got me. Just going through my shirts, trying to find.
I put on my other black shirt, but I was like, I have that actually in the bathroom, and then I
saw it. I still used your bathroom early, and I saw it in there. I was like, hey, I'm wearing that same shirt today.
I had it because I was going to put it on, and I was like, yeah. I must have known subconsciously that you were going to wear it. I didn't want to be twinsies because we've already done it a couple times in the last week.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to have to start wearing like fancy sweatshirt here. I can, just in case on the cold days, I can wear that.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep it where it was. I'll turn it back. Like, I have it on full blast now, then I'll turn it back to where it was before I turned it down yesterday.
And we'll hope. We'll see what happens.
It should be warm tomorrow.
So, yesterday after the show, I went to the SAU. They needed another form ID. Because originally when I was on the board, got appointed to the board or whatever, I gave my driver's license, but I don't have my social security card, which kind of concerns me because I don't even know where that is anymore. And I used to be very good about like where keeping your valuable items. I don't know. But I have a passport. And of course, then I notice my passport expires at the end of the year, which...
I think my passport expires pretty soon.
That sucks, man. It sucks going through that process of getting it, like, because I'll have to go get a picture and go through all that. But I want to because with the passport, you're good, and you don't need the ID card that New Hampshire's going to require soon, supposedly. And
I think I already have that ID card.
The real ID, which is, like, I don't know why we're wasting our time doing all this. We don't care about illegals in the country anyways. Minnesota just passed a law that anyone can get a driver's license, so and they celebrated it, and it was this great thing. So why do I need a real ID that shows who I am?
So you can fly.
So
it's like a step before the digital ID.
Yeah, crazy. So, so our show for Tuesday, I was noticing before we came on, 134 views.
35.
35 now, yeah. So it's the best views we've had prior to us signing up for that thing to try to increase our subscriptions and stuff, which is
a sham.
Complete sham that I should never let go as long as it did, because that cost me way too much money. I mean, we still have like 8,200 something subscribers, but most of those are from like India. They're just so fake.
Yeah, it was not.
You talk about corruption and illegal things, and then like this company's totally getting away with it. It's not real. None of these people are real.
Well, that's how they influence consent, is because, like, I mean, you paid 20 or whatever, $30, and it's 69. It's supposed to increase it, but all they did was put bots or whatever on there.
Yeah,
totally.
So the nice thing is we now know how many views we really have, and I still question it because there's a lot of times that the views won't be that high. Like yesterday's show, you got that in front, didn't you?
23.
So 23. Now, sometimes I notice too, it's a little bit delayed. It takes sometimes people a few days to kind of watch them, which, I mean, I get it, because you got to take time to do it. It's not as easy.
And ours are pretty long.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to put it on in the car while you're driving around.
Yeah, which we want to work on that too. So, you'll notice yesterday up on the banner on the show, and I'll do it from now on, is I put the YouTube logo up there and the Rumble, because we're on Rumble as well. So the easiest thing to do to get a show, and we'd appreciate it, is subscribe to the channel, and then you'll automatically, when we have a new show, you'll just like notify like, hey, new show. And obviously, like, I share it on Facebook and stuff, but that's why I want to put those banners up there. And we'll see if I'll get on some other stuff. Andrew was talking about like trying to, so you should look into like Spotify and stuff, which it would just truly be a podcast portion of that. But for the most part, no one cares anyways. Some people probably don't mind looking at us, but most people would rather just hear us if they're going to have to listen to us at all. So, so yeah, I want to look into that. But yeah, if you have Rumble, subscribe and follow or whatever, and especially if you have YouTube, subscribe to our channel, like our videos, share our videos.
That's the first time you've ever said that. Like, share, subscribe.
I know.
And this is episode 98.
First time in a long time, at least. I think probably in the beginning I was good about it.
Did you? I don't know. I don't know if we ever really actually said those words.
Yeah, we really are sucky at promoting ourselves.
Yeah, because we're doing this for altruistic reasons, right? Like, to try to, like... I don't know, discuss things that some people may not feel comfortable or.
Yeah, if you didn't notice, we don't mind talking about things that other people are. Like, I'll walk down Main Street and feel perfectly content.
Yeah,
I don't.
I sleep well at night. I think I'm a good person. I try to do the right thing.
Yeah. And we correct things if we make mistakes, which we don't make many mistakes. Not to toot our own horn, but
We've had a couple of corrections.
Got a couple things
last year or whatever.
Put out 98 shows, and those are just 98 of me and you. That's not counting Chief Wilmot, Chief Lee, the one with trees. So we've done
Farming
more.
Friday ones.
We'll go back to that soon.
I'm going to be
hopefully.
back to that. I'm going to try to do some real good videos this year.
We'll see how many hits we get on this. Steve is obsessed to think that people just watch people drive around on a tractor.
They do. They go to sleep to it.
I mean, I could see it, I guess, an old tractor. You know, it's got that old John Deere out there, the noise of it, and just plowing a big old 100-acre field or something.
Yeah, and then you have the lines. You know, you got all kinds of.
This would be like a 1/4-acre garden, but
It's a pretty good sized garden.
hey, you have a John Deere tractor now and everything, and
We're
so
going to expand it too. We're going to that strip of grass where
are we gonna try fish again this year?
I don't know. All the otters ate them all.
I'm so disappointed by that. We didn't even get to go one time to go fish, and like these 5 otters came in and ate every
All of it.
freaking one of them.
Devin said he backtracked their trail and it was just carcass after carcass. He was like, "Yeah, you probably don't have much fish left in your pond.
You know,
Not just the trout, but
if anyone has any tricks out there to
keep the
safely,
otters."
yeah, like keeping the otters away and like safely keeping your fish, because that sucked. That was gonna be fun. That was gonna be fun for Adelina.
Well, now I got the 2 labs, and like they're pretty well trained. So whenever they leave my site, they go to the pond. So maybe with both of them out there, maybe it'll discourage the otters.
Maybe. I mean, the other option, I guess, is we could just fill it with piranha, so when the otters come, eat the.
But that wouldn't be good because my dogs like to swim because they're labs.
That's true. Okay. That's
Well, I say dogs. JJ likes to swim. The puppy has yet to show us his swimming chops.
what will happen if Tony goes in the water?
He actually, so when I first brought him back in the fall, he went down there and walked in. He likes the water. Like my dad couldn't get him to ride on a golf cart with him. Like that was my dad's like only thing he wanted to do was like just have him ride along with him, like a lot of the old guys do around their subdivision. But not Tony. But for me, he walked right down to the pond, followed me, got his feet wet.
Yeah, I just don't see him going in the water.
Now I don't see him making it to the pond. He needs to put some weight on or close his eyes and go to sleep.
Go to the big sleep in the sky.
Yeah. It's
Excuse
tough for me because whenever I adopted him,
I get it. Like, no one likes to put an animal down.
he did not want to walk past the room, which was where they put the dogs down. Like he knew exactly. Like I had.
Well, that's because down in the South, they freaking murder dogs constantly.
Well, this was in Missouri. Missouri. This was actually in Missouri. because it was
Midwest. But no, down south, like,
south of St. Louis.
like the Wags and Wiggles place here in town, they rescue all those dogs from down south because for some reason down south, people like small dogs or big dogs. They don't like medium-sized dogs. And they've got a lot of kill shelters down there. So they'll like adopt, get them and bring them up here and put them in, nice families and stuff. But which is crazy to think about. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's an issue someone like should try to address. But then again, it's like
Didn't Bob Barker address?
spay and neuter your
Spay and
pets.
neutering your pets. That was his big thing
I mean,
for all
that-
those years.
Maybe that could be something like the federal government wants to actually do something constructive. Like, listen, we'll pay for spay and neutering your animal because I don't want more control from the government. But that'd be an incentive, like, because it costs what, $100, $200? I don't know. It's more for females, right? Because that's a surgery. Then, like, so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so no, thanks for everyone watching. I was impressed with the views. Kept going up, and I was like, oh, wow, looks great. So, of course, that was a show that, we obviously talked about the select board meeting and all that, and we'll have many more of those coming up. So, I was actually so I went to, like I said, I went to SAU, and I talked to Donna for a little bit, and then it was close to time. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get the kids, and so I pull out of there and go through town and back up to the high school and park out front. And I was obviously early, and Wayne Boardman pulls up behind me, gets out, starts talking to me, and he's like, I just watched your show. And I was like, oh, sweet. And I know his wife does. Mary watches it. And we're talking a little bit. He's like, yeah, I think I'm going to get more involved in, what's going on. And I was like, that's awesome, because everybody should
be involved. At the end of the day, that's kind of what we want.
That's exactly what we want.
We need a plurality of ideas.
Yeah, we need people to get involved, show up in meetings, ask questions. And it doesn't mean like, oh, we need to show up because there's things going on that shouldn't be going on. You need to show up and be involved. Just good times too. Good things, bad things. Like,
it gives both boards an idea of what everybody else is thinking, because a lot of times we get emails or phone calls when there's a negative, right, but not for like positive.
Right. It never seems
very rarely. Like I don't think I've ever gotten one. Now people have shown up to the board to say, to say some positive things.
Right. It's just get involved in your local government, and it's not a huge thing. It's not a big commitment.
Yeah, the select board is very open. They'll sit there and talk back and forth with you.
Yeah.
Way more than we do at the school board.
Yeah, I've often complimented that for a long time. And actually, I didn't know this, but Bert had said that the reason for the open forum the way it is because Jeff Kessler had introduced it a few years back, or quite a few years back. So it's nice. You go down to a select board meeting on Monday, open forum, you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
And it's always been a good dialogue. I've seen it, done it myself. I've seen it every week, and it's great, and we don't have that as good at the school. It's much better than it was prior to us being on the board. So I think that communication's obviously a lot better. But, if you have questions or anything, the select board's extremely open, and they're very inviting, and go for it. And the school is too now. I
don't think Jenna's stopped anyone if they've gone over.
When Ms. Huber was there last meeting, she went over, but she's talking about funding of education and the importance.
It doesn't matter what they're talking about. No. I've always said, even in my job back in the day, someone who shows up, that whatever they've shown up for is the most important thing going on in their life right at that moment. Right? Yeah. So if someone shows up to the board meeting, and then we're going to be like, you're done talking. And they're like it's important, whatever it is they're trying to talk about. And they may not be professional speakers. It's hard. Like I was way better 6 years ago talking in public than I am now, because I used to do it day in and day out.
Right.
And now, my nerves are back. My armpits get a little sweaty.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting better at talking in public. I've never been a good public speaker. It's just a nerve thing. You just get nerved up. And I always say, the teachers have such an advantage, because that's all teachers do every day is talk in public, And so I'm like, you guys have such an advantage when you come and talk here, because, you can say what you're saying better because it's what you do.
You just pretend that we're all a bunch of fourth graders, ninth graders, whatever.
Yeah. So, no, it's show up, get involved. There's a board meeting tonight, 5 o'clock, with Thompson Room. A few things on the agenda, and the biggest thing and the most important thing is voting is Tuesday for the budget. Please come out and vote. Support the budget. Very important. The para contracts are in there. 2 teaching positions in the high school, 1 in CTE.
Bus driver.
Money for a bus driver. Very important. Very important. And the difference is an 87-cent default budget or $1.85 regular budget. So it's
98 cents. Or
it's just the difference is small, and I understand 100%.
Every dollar counts.
Yes,
obviously.
I get it. But trust me, we've gone through this budget. We've taken out anything we saw that was like, this seems like waste, and honestly, there really isn't any waste, because
I don't even know that we use the term waste, to be fair.
No.
It's so they did a good job this year of taking the budget and breaking everything down by line item, consolidating everything, either the principal or the administrator level up to the SAU level, and so it will make it easier as we have requirements come up to see exactly what we're spending, how,
Right.
It makes it easier for us to be the arbiters for the town as we're looking through, because we're not looking to waste any money, because every dollar counts for me and you both as well.
Yeah. And every
We're not making a lot of money doing this.
I know.
I think it's a net loss, actually, between the two of us.
Oh yeah, but like every penny count, and I get it, and your light bills are everything is up. I get it 100%. It's just to feel like if we want to take Newport,
Well, so are our paras, right? In this case,
Well, right.
Like, their light bills are up.
they make less money than McDonald's workers. With
currently.
Yes.
This will put them above.
This will, yeah, and this still isn't a huge increase, but this is enough that the administration and the union for the professionals believe that this is going to make us competitive.
Yeah, and it's fair.
Yes, and so
At least we think it's fair.
right, and we've
Or I won't speak for you. I think it's fair.
yeah, no, I do as well. Yeah, so please, get up Tuesday, support the budget.
You're going to be on the radio on Monday?
Yeah, Monday 7:20 means I got to get up early.
Oh, you're going to be on that early?
Yeah.
Is anybody listening at 7:20 in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, probably most people that are,
Just,
not me and you. You usually get up earlier than me.
no, I know. I'm up every day at 6:30.
I'm horrible, man.
I'm tired today. It's got to be something in the air, and then I was up 3 or 4 times with
It's weird.
the old dog last night.
I've been staying up late, like watching Netflix or whatever, but then I've been getting up like 8. Today was a little later, like 8:45 time I got up today, but
Man, you jinxed me. I'm the one over here.
I know.
coughing.
But you like stay up usually to midnight every night and then get up early, and I mean I could, I guess, if I got the routine in, but it's really just a routine.
Back
thing.
when I was in the Army, I would sleep 4 hours,
I wish I could do that. You know how much you can accomplish if you only sleep 4 hours?
I do. You can accomplish a lot.
So tomorrow is the students versus faculty basketball game it's at Toll School. I don't think I've said that before. At Toll School. And $2 for adults, $1 for students, concessions, and 6 o'clock. The thing said, if you're playing and stuff, show up by 6, so I'm assuming it starts at 6. It might be 6:30, but if you get there at 6, you'll be safe and you won't miss anything.
You said that for 2 or 3 shows in a row now, so
Yeah. Well, that way if someone comes at me, I'm like,
I showed up
I
at
showed up and come find out it was actually at 6 or I don't know.
6:30, and you had me get there at 6.
Imagine if it starts at 7. I'm telling you I'm going to be there at 6.
Well, there'll be a lot of good community. Everybody can sit around and talk with each other, get to know the people to your left and right.
Yeah. Check out the building. Like,
Yeah.
and then Saturday is the FFA pancake breakfast. 7:30 to 10. Now I'm doing this by memory because that was yesterday. I'll get her here. $10. And yeah, see, 7:30 to 10. Old Courthouse Restaurant. And I should have checked this, and maybe I'll ask Donna later, and I'll talk about it at the meeting tonight. But then tomorrow, when Chief Lee comes in, I'll just mention it. It says tickets are available through any of the FFA members or the tech center office. I'm just going to assume you can get tickets at the door. And I might be wrong.
You might be wrong, because they may need to plan how much.
But if I'm wrong,
But that would make sense,
Tomorrow.
because what if somebody was driving by and saw it? I don't think they'd turn anybody away. Maybe I'm
hell
wrong.
no, you want to raise money.
Right.
Pancakes, the easiest thing to make in the world. So,
Flour,
yeah, no waste, just flowers,
flour, baking powder, milk, egg.
I will confirm this later, and then I will confirm it on the show tomorrow to mention, hey, yes, you can get tickets at the door.
Or you can contact the technical center office and ask them.
You could do that.
If you don't want to, because...
If you don't want to rely on me for this?
Well, no. But if you don't want to, drive up there, because you do got to go through, the security measures and everything. And it's not like you can just walk up to the...
That's true.
Tech center and let me get 2 tickets, you know what I mean? So...
Excuse me.
I mean, I'm glad you aimed right for the microphone. I hope on that cough you went,
my mic?
Yeah.
No one uses my mic but me.
No, I'm saying for the audience listening,
Oh.
that went straight into the speakers of their TV or phone just now.
See, it's nasty, isn't it? It's not fun at all. But don't worry, if you come around me, it's been 2.5 weeks. You're not going to catch it anymore. I'm still trying to get rid of it, though. You think colds are kind of one of those things where you get it until someone else gets it from you?
No, because I got sick. It'll be 2 weeks for me, Friday or Saturday I started feeling bad a couple weeks ago.
So do you think I got you sick? Or your wife, who works in a healthcare facility?
You did, because this morning Nikki was like, the damn Eurista Thurber freaking beards, whatever.
It's funny because...
She named all the last names in that house. She was definitely, Nikki has pinpointed it to your family, Timothy.
It's funny because...
The beards.
I mean, I wasn't told not to say this, so I'll say it. But Andrew said to me a bunch of times, pretty much every time we get sick, yeah, it's probably Nikki brought it to us, and then she just has a wicked delay reaction to it because she's around it so often, and she's actually the one spreading all this stuff,
Nah.
Yeah.
You guys have been sick more.
It's because
Oh, you had a lot of kids in the house and
but
everything.
This one's weird because Adelina got sick, and we then got Andrew sick, and then got me sick. But the other kids didn't get it.
Yeah, I saw Emilio the other day. He said he's feeling fine.
Yeah, so they didn't get it. So because usually it comes from school, school's a petri dish, and
well, when I worked there, the first 3 months,
yeah.
I always had a runny nose.
Yeah.
It was it's horrible.
Yeah.
That's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. The teachers do get sick quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, I had a conversation, and I cannot discuss the conversation, but I can say this, that in the conversation I had with Donna yesterday, man, the amount of things the teachers have to deal with on a daily basis that does not pertain to teaching is insane. And the fact that our students do as well as they do and get the education they do is probably a freaking miracle, because the amount of stuff, it's crazy. It's crazy what they go through every single day.
I do. I have a pretty good understanding. I substituted one time at the middle school and wouldn't take the phone calls after that. The high school I did a couple times. And then I settled in nicely with the younger kids just because they're not as angry or rough around the edges, you know what I mean?
They won't jump you in the parking lot on your way home.
No, that's not it. It's stressful, especially so obviously I have the knowledge to teach pretty much any subject. I mean, granted that only a certain few I could get a certificate for. However, the difference between knowing that and then being able to handle the psychology of 5 to 18 to 19-year-olds, that's a big swing. Because when I was in the military, there's always a couple people that would outrank me, but normally I outranked most people. And so when I spoke, people react, they did what I said. It was just that simple.
Bet that didn't happen at school.
No.
So
what I'm saying is, it's not, you don't just tell the kids, all right, be quiet, and they listen, right? Most will, but then there's a few that are want to push the boundaries. That makes it stressful, and that's what the teaching certificate comes in, because they teach them how to handle those situations. And then they're also doing professional development to continue to learn how to de-escalate and maximize potential of every child in the classroom. So anyway, I digress.
So I want to talk about this state bill that's up right now. It was spoke about on Tuesday, but it hasn't been voted on. So you can still actually send in testimony. So if you go online, so it's House Bill 10 in New Hampshire, and it's a bill to protect parents' rights, which, ironically, at this point, it has 349 views in support and 1,013 in opposition.
See, that's got to be bots. How many? There's 1,000 parents writing in, be like, "Don't give me."
Well, so this is on We the People, New Hampshire, and Tree said a lot of it is that a lot of like the Democrats have just some older people that are retired and stuff, and they just
do it.
They just go right. Yeah, they just do whatever like that, and the opposition doesn't have that. I just can't understand how anyone would be opposed to parents' rights. So basically what it is this bill is to protect the parents so that the teachers or people at school can't be letting, like, things are happening behind your back. Like, you find out your child's trying to look into gender affirming, surgeries or puberty blockers or whatever. Well, if the bill fails, they can secretly do this apparently without you knowing anything about it, and it's perfectly fine. Now, if we can get the bill passed, they legally cannot do that. They have to involve the parents. And what pisses me off is if your child breaks the law, and they break it bad enough, they will criminally hold the parents responsible, because you're technically responsible for your child until they turn 18 years old. Yet, for some reason now, suddenly, if kids want something like a sex change, suddenly they have all these rights. They can't buy alcohol, they can't buy cigarettes, they can't
buy matches,
they can't vote, they can't do any of these things. Can't get a tattoo, but
can't get piercings.
They can have their penis cut off, and they can have puberty blockers, prescribed to them that could permanently cause damage, right? So all these things, and the defense is on the liberal side is, oh, well, this is what they want, we need to give them what they want. So since when do you give your kids what they want because it's what they want? This is how you get a whole generation of spoiled, rotten brats that will amount to nothing in this world. Oh, well, they wanted something, they wanted it, so we gave it to them. How would you do your damn job as a parent, take away the electronics, which is just a babysitter, so you don't have to parent, and do your job, or don't have freaking kids? So, it seems pretty simple to me. But once again, progressive narrative, to let the government raise your children just like China. Wake the hell up. Like, if you don't want to be a parent, you don't know. No one out there forces you to be a parent. Your actions cause you to have a child, right? So you get a girl pregnant, and now you have a kid. You know what? If you don't want to have a child,
give it up for adoption.
Yeah, or practice, safe sex and don't have a child. Nobody puts a gun in your head and says you have to have a child. Nobody. So what is it like? It doesn't make sense to me.
The logic is lacking.
Yeah.
I've been saying it since I was in the military. Like, you can get a weapon and go fight and kill and die, but yet you're not allowed to have a beer.
Yeah.
In some states, you're not allowed to have a cigarette. Not that I, condone that or anything, but the point is, these young men and women see horrible things as young as 18.
Yeah. Well, because they're making somebody money.
It's part of the hypocrisy that I can't wrap my head around. Like, I'm not saying, like, yeah, what you're saying is don't keep it a secret from the parents. Like, that's common sense. Like, well, I can't believe we're having this discussion. Like, how did this get into the realm of possibilities to where you're not responsible for your child only for certain things. So we're going to hold you accountable here, but not here. Accountable here, but not there. You're not allowed to know anything about your child when it comes to this because we determine that you're a bigot.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're doing. Is they're like, well, if you don't want to let your kid at whatever age, then you're a bigot. And it's like, well, 3 weeks ago they wanted to be a dinosaur. Like, they're kids. Let them be kids.
Yeah. You know, like I said, and we go back to our show on Tuesday when I talked about how, like, yeah, I just come back.
I'm not the Lone Ranger, and I grew up wanting to be the Lone Ranger.
Yeah. But, like, when I walked, like, when
I wanted to be Rambo. I am not Rambo.
That's for sure. But no, when I went to the doctor, you know, we went for the baby's ultrasound stuff, and it's like, oh, you're having a girl. Yeah, yeah. Or, you know, or you could be having a boy. There's nothing in between there, though. There's no other genders. There's two genders. And I don't care. Like, I've said this before, and people are like, well, you're transphobic, blah, blah, blah. No, see, here's the thing that you don't understand is when you use phobic is fear. You're homophobic, transphobic. I'm not scared of any of these people. You don't instill fear in me whatsoever. I don't care what you do at your home. When you're 18 years old, if you want to cut off your genitalia, I don't care what you do. As long as you're not hurting someone else, I don't care. But at the end of the day, don't come back to us and cry and say, oh my God, I just made the worst mistake of my life, and now it's mine and your responsibility to fix these people, get them in therapy and all this out of our tax money because they screwed up. But no, you're on your own, bud. So,
Individual responsibility?
Yeah. So if you want to come out, you know, and say, oh, you're and this is exactly what they do. You're an ist, you're this, you're that. It's just a way to try to shut you down because they have no freaking argument whatsoever.
Yeah, to make it personal instead of having a discussion.
Like I said, I don't care what you do.
I don't pretend to know anything. You know, like, I mean, I do know some things because I was a senior HR manager for the Army, so I have actually some knowledge. But you know, they went and they changed the manual or whatever, right? But up until a few years ago, it was different, right? So like, there's a change, but I don't have to agree with everything. Like, no one has to agree with you. Like, you can't make me say things that I don't want to say. Like, you can't control my speech other than I can't make threats.
Right.
Right? I can't incite violence, that kind of stuff, which I totally agree with. But apart from that, like, that's just the way I feel. Like, it's just like I told you, like, you know, the way the pictures that they show of these drag queens, you know, like, that's basically clown makeup, and I have a phobia of clowns, which I say
is an actual
phobia,
fear.
Like, my reaction is to attack. Like, a clown better never come up to my face, man, because, like, obviously I won't attack because I'm not going to commit a crime, but, like...
You run the other way.
I won't run. I'll just tell them that they need to walk away from me and stop making eye contact with me and to get out of my personal space, right? Because I'm not ever going to go up to a clown. I'm not ever going to go to a drag queen or...
No, it's gotten to the point in this country where it hurts my feelings what you're saying, so you can't say it. No, that's not how it works. Sorry. Maybe you should suck it up, Buttercup.
Yeah, go find friends that agree with you and hang out with them and leave me alone.
Right. Just because you disagree doesn't make me wrong. I'm entitled to my opinion, just like you're.
I don't want
entitled
anybody to
yours.
misinterpret what I'm saying. I think everybody should be treated with dignity and respect.
Right.
Because we don't know what's going on in their lives. So I don't want anybody to think I'm advocating anything other than treating people with dignity and respect. And to go back to your original the point of the conversation was,
leave the friggin' kids alone.
Yeah, let the parents do their jobs. And as I always say, any chance I get, parents, your kids are your responsibility.
Yeah.
And most parents know that, you know, obviously. But there are a few out there, like you said, that put the iPhone or iPad in front of them and walk away. Just like with my generation, it was leaving the TV on. You know what I mean? Like, every generation has it.
Right. Like, yeah, we played video
But, like,
games.
we were kicked out of the house. We weren't allowed. Like, my parents were good about it, which is, like, get out of the house.
Hmm?
Weather's too nice outside. And then come in when the street lights are on or the sun goes down.
Yeah. No good has come of throwing your kid in front of electronics. I mean, the studies are starting to
Well, this
come
day
out
and
now.
age, like, TikTok is I mean, we've talked about the differences before. In China, museums, educational videos come up. Here, it's all kinds of craziness. Like, you can go find videos of, even on YouTube, where, like, the commercials, like, people are now recording the commercials for children's programming with somehow a rap song will make it in there because they do that sometimes. There'll be a new song, 2.5-minute commercial on YouTube with cuss words and stuff that you wouldn't want your 6-year-old probably watching,
Right.
or listening to.
It's just about decency and like common sense things. Like people are like, oh, so you're trying to ban books? I'm not trying to ban anything, but there's age appropriate things.
Yeah, it's like the movie has a rating system.
Exactly. No one seems to be flipping out about that. It's the same exact thing.
Well, liberals used to flip out about it back in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Even with music, because the conservatives were like, this is bad influence, and the liberals were like, no, let it all play.
I don't know.
I mean, that's how I remember it. I was younger back then, but if I remember, you know what I mean, it was Republican, usually like anyway. They're against bad programming for kids back in the day. And then we had the movie rating system. And like you said, today you don't really get that much. I haven't seen much talk about it, but it's supposed to limit what kids can watch. So if we can limit what they can watch, why can't we limit what they read?
Right. You wouldn't.
Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Like they're parallel. They're not the same, but they kind of are.
Yeah. It's just,
One's watching with your eyes, one's reading, and if there's pictures, then you're not even imagining.
yeah. It's crazy. This is like. How do you ever get to this point?
It's a cultural war, and I
To destroy our
personally believe
culture.
it's to destroy the culture and the family unit. Like the family unit's been being destroyed for decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I'm fortunate. My parents have been married 56, almost 7 years now. Nikki's parents are still married. Nikki and I are obviously still married. You got to work through your That's not to say that there's not problems. We haven't had arguments and some serious disagreements, but it's a commitment. And I saw how my parents and a lot of my friends that I grew up were around, their parents are still married too. So
it's a throwaway society now. Like you throw away your
TV when
and the relationships are the same way. Like, oh, we don't agree on this, so we just throw it away because that's how it is, right? It'll be better somewhere else. It's like, nope.
And my buddy was telling me that some of his friends, they're the couple, because we've all been married roughly 18 to 20 some odd years now, my age group, and because they don't know how to communicate with each other because they didn't see their parents argue, maybe, right? So like they don't know how to communicate with each other, how they disagree, and then it blows up, and they end up despising each other. And, then you're stuck in a soulless, happyless marriage, which is kind of like how you were talking. You got to stand up for yourself. You got to be able to have conversations. You got to be able to find middle ground.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
And if you
I
lack
guarantee you there's days where Nikki's like, please don't come home for ever again. You know what I mean? Like, because that's just how life is. Sometimes you get angry and mad at each other. Just like your kids are going to make mistakes or whatever, we're not asking you to, ground them for life and punish them, but like hold them accountable, teach them right and wrong. And I know most people do, especially the ones listening to the show.
Right.
But help out your neighbors. Back in the day, if maybe before I moved to where my parents live now, if any of the neighbors saw me doing something wrong, they could snatch me up, drag me back to my house, and my mom or dad would spank me right there.
That's called kidnapping today.
No, well, yeah, it's probably worse, but that was how it was back in the day. Like I said yesterday's show, we had a kids table and we sat there and the parents did their things. We didn't dare interrupt. Like you'd be surprised that. Like that was my biggest pet peeve with Zeta, was teaching her to say, excuse me, please, and try to wait for a pregnant pause in a conversation before she does it. And she still, like, there's nothing like, it would just make me so, especially when I've worked. Like if I'm having a conversation with someone and then someone comes and stands right here and then like, either starts talking immediately or doesn't say, excuse me, please. Like as adults, that's rude and Like, I got nothing for you. Like, you can't see I'm in a conversation right here. But that's because when they were kids, they were just allowed to do that.
It's tough, getting having babies, basically.
And don't get me wrong, I am not acting like I'm some authority on the subject. No. I mean, we all make mistakes, and
Oh yeah, no, we could do so many shows about mistakes.
Yeah, like
that's something.
I'm not sitting here casting judgment. What I'm saying is, it's a struggle, but it's a team effort. It's a community effort.
But there are certain things that we see that happen all the time that you could change to make things better, and that is
like
stop letting electronics be the babysitter.
Electronics, and then you have some parents acting crazy at sporting events or town events, and it's like, well, I know where the kid gets it, right?
Right. Yeah. All right. So this next thing, I saw this yesterday, and then immediately went in to get the video from YouTube so we could have it on the show. It pisses me off to know, like, this, to me, that this should be the story on every news network across the country, if not further. And there should be huge demands and answers to. So basically, and we'll play the video in a few minutes here, but there's a Marine testifying to Congress, basically saying that he had the shot to take out the suicide bomber that murdered 13 Marines and, what was it, 170 people?
A guy that matched the description.
Yeah. And they would not give him permission to take the shot. And he's talked about how there's zero accountability of this whole situation. And it's just disgusting. And people should go to the jail. Like, this should be a huge thing. But it'll just get swept under the rug because of, of who's in office and all this.
The two-tier justice system.
Yeah. It's not okay.
Yeah, I mean, so they were doing a drawdown, right? So there's rules of engagement, obviously, because he asked his battalion commander. And so they weren't clear enough for the battalion commander to tell him to take the shot. So, yes, in hindsight, they did all that, but if the guidance from the very top, or because in hindsight, because that might not have been, he was like, it met the description, he described it, or you'll see he describes it, but it's hard to second guess until you get to what were the rules of engagement and why were they established as such. Because, you know what I mean? Because you would like to think that they give that battalion commander the authority, and maybe he did have the authority and he didn't realize it. Based on the testimony, it doesn't sound like he did. But it's hard to second guess things, and especially when you see the effects that decision has. The chain of command, if that's the rules of engagement they were going with, and they had intel. See, that's what throws me off, is they had intel that there was a bomber.
Right.
They had a guy that matched the description. When the war was at its peak, that's a radio, telephonic, they give authority at some level, right? But then it's a radio call, and then
right, boom,
it's a pretty quick decision usually.
Right. But let's keep in mind what happened in this whole event. So,
quick's a relative term, by the way.
The bomb did go off, did kill 13 Marines. The whole withdrawal from Afghanistan was a complete joke. And then after, the Pentagon sent a drone in and blew up a car that was supposedly, related to this, right? And nope, wasn't done. It's just collateral damage, I guess. But just no accountability, none, zero.
No. I mean, it's like I would guarantee you that the military has an investigation on all these actions going on. It might be done, but there's an investigation going on to get to the root cause of why he wasn't given authorization, where was the failure point, and people will be held to account. In the old Army, that's my expectations. So, yes, this is compelling testimony, and it's heartbreaking. But I'm not gonna, without knowing the full thing, because usually that you'd be able to say, well, this level failed to communicate. Why did they fail to communicate? And why did they fail to take the shot? Right? So they'll get to those answers eventually. Like, no, this is Congress's way of showing all of us just how incompetent the withdrawal was.
Yeah.
And from the appearance, as we watch this video, is that they could have possibly stopped it from happening.
Right, and they didn't.
Right. So,
check this video out, and see what you think. It's crazy, but check this out.
Hundreds of people came in waves surging through the gate multiple times, physically fighting us. Living out of our tower, we conducted 24/7 operations at the gate. The next 7 days were surreal. Nothing prepared us for the ground experience we were about to encounter. It was chaos, but we worked together to figure out the next best steps. Tens of thousands of people descended upon Abbey Gate. We were looking for anyone with a blue passport first and foremost. People were suffering from extreme malnutrition, dehydration, heat casualties, and infants were dying. Afghans were brutalized and tortured by the Taliban, flocked to us pleading for help. Some Afghans turned away from HKIA, tried to kill themselves on the razor wire in front of us that we used as a deterrent. They thought this was merciful compared to the Taliban torture that they faced. Countless Afghans were murdered by the Taliban 155 yards in front of our position, day and night. With only shipping containers between us, the Taliban would routinely murder people under our observation at their checkpoint. We communicated the atrocities to our chain of command and intel assets, but nothing came of it. Department of State staff and HKIA would completely shut down processing Afghans every evening and into the morning, leaving ground forces with a nightmare. They did not work in reasonable rotations and very much presented an unwillingness to work in other situations as well. No matter our health or condition, the Marines stood watch and engaged in disorderly and dangerous crowds. State was not prepared to be in HKIA. In fact, State would not want to deal with the Afghans unable to be processed, weakening the security of the perimeter. State would take us away from our mission to walk Afghans out to meet the fate of the Taliban, condemning them to death. Over the communication network, we passed that there was a potential threat and an IED attack imminent. This was as serious as it could get. I requested engagement authority while my team leader was ready on the M110 semi-automatic sniper system. The response, leadership did not have the engagement authority for us. Do not engage. I requested for the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Brad Whited, to come to the tower to see what we did. While we waited for him, psychological operations individuals came to our tower immediately and confirmed the suspect met the suicide bomber description. He eventually arrived and we showed him our evidence, the photos we had of the two men. We reassured him of the ease of fire on the suicide bomber. Pointedly, we asked him for engagement authority and permission. We asked him if we could shoot. Our battalion commander said, and I quote, "I don't know," end quote. Myself and my team leader asked very harshly, "Well, who does? Because this is your responsibility, sir." He again replied he did not know, but would find out. We received no update and never got our answer. Eventually, the individual disappeared. To this day, we believe he was a suicide bomber. We made everyone on the ground aware. Operations had briefly halted, but then started again. Plain and simple, we were ignored. Our expertise was disregarded. No one was held accountable for our safety. About 1730, Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover, friend and mentor, came to get me from the tower to go help find an Afghan interpreter in the crowd. We found the interpreter and his brother, born with American passports. They told us of 5 family members still in the canal. I stayed there waiting for the family members standing against a 2-foot canal wall. 10 minutes passed. Then a flash and a massive wave of pressure. I'm thrown 12 feet onto the ground, but instantly knew what had happened. I opened my eyes to Marines dead or unconscious lying around me. A crowd of hundreds immediately vanished in front of me, and my body was catastrophically wounded with 100 to 150 ball bearings now in it. Almost immediately, we started taking fire from the neighborhood, and I saw how injured I was with my right arm, completely shredded and unusable. I saw my lower abdomen soaked in blood. I crawled backwards roughly 7 feet because I thought I was still in harm's way.
My body was overwhelmed from the trauma of the blast. My abdomen had been ripped open. Every inch of my exposed body, except for my face, took ball bearings and shrapnel. I tried to get up, but could not. Laying there for a few minutes, I started to lose consciousness when I heard Chaz, my team leader, screaming my name as he ran to me. His voice calling to me kept me awake. When he got to me, he dragged me to safety and immediately started triaging me, tying tourniquets on my limbs and doing anything he could to stop the bleeding and start plugging wounds with the help of the other Marines. I was awake through most of it, screaming, moaning, and cursing. I ask you to please ask me about getting shot at the tower in Abbey Gate and how no one wanted my report post-blast. Even NCIS and the FBI failed to interview me. The withdrawal was a catastrophe, in my opinion, and there was an inexcusable lack of accountability and negligence. The 11 Marines, 1 sailor, and 1 soldier that were murdered that day have not been answered for. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy, and I don't like to be the person that like looks at something afterwards, because this happens all the time. Like, you know, you get dragged before Congress, and why'd you make the decision? And okay, well, let's put Congress in the same. Let me show you what I was going through at the time. I had bullets flying by my head, you know, all this stuff. But this just seems to be, you know, for me, it goes back to Benghazi, and I know it wasn't this administration. I mean, part of it was, I guess, he was the vice president at the time, but and all the breakdowns there, like criminal. It's not even just like accidents happen, like.
Well, so
no,
you brought up Benghazi. For me, the whole thing with that, regardless of any, so the thing that makes you suspicious is that they lied and said that was a spontaneous crowd that erupted over a YouTube video that was posted 2 years before. I don't know if you remember that, but that's initially what they said.
Right.
It's kind of like with everything. Once the government lies about one thing, what are they not lying about now?
Right.
Like, so there's no, we made a mistake, we're sorry. Like, no one, people don't hardly do that anymore.
Right.
For whether it's ego or because we're a litigious society or whatever it is, but I always found that once you realize you've made a mistake, owning it and trying to make it right is the best way to regain any trust if you're ever going to do it. Is acknowledge and repair and fix and try to make things right if you can. In this case, it cost people's lives, and that's unacceptable. Don't get me wrong. I'm not justifying anybody's actions. What I'm saying is, without having the full scope of it, it's hard to. I mean, it's easy because we see the result of it. Does that make sense? But also, I know that there's more to it, because it doesn't make sense that if we have a threat, like, why wasn't it relayed once they said we have a possible ID or whatever? Because what he says is, like, battalion commander didn't give him anything back or didn't get anything back. That's what he said. And that just, to me, seems odd. Something like that, to me, that seems where, like, well, why wouldn't they? Because the battalion commander in the military is like the level where you can start really making some decisions. Company commander, you can when you're out and things are happening, but really the battalion commander, they're the ones that are held to account for just about anything that goes wrong in an organization.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, it's just tragic, and
it's very tragic. So I'm not.
13 families said,
I'm not a sniper. I've never been in a situation like that myself. So just truth in lending, I was a HR officer, so I had a postal unit, so I had people on the roads and everything else, but I was not actively.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't want anybody to think I'm sitting here like, no, I can give you all types of postal regulations on how to move mail properly. I can talk to you about, promotions and accountability and casualties and casualty reporting and transportation, that kind of stuff. But like this is, outside of my wheelhouse, but I do know that battalion commander should have had someone immediately call back to him and give him some type of response.
Right.
Whether it was, don't take the shot,
Right.
or take the shot if he has a scar, or what, whatever, if they have more information. But that to me just seems off, that battalion commander wouldn't have an immediate superior organization to call and them to call, and to get immediate response, especially if there was a threat. So yeah, it was messed up, but I'm not going to cast blame without knowing the whole thing. And I believe the military will investigate it thoroughly. That doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be flaws in that investigation, because everything's flawed. But
That's a little headline. We're kind of looking at stuff for the show today. Is the fentanyl crisis is at historic lows, according to the White House. It was like, you guys are the biggest.
Is it?
No, biggest lying pieces of shit ever. Historic lows. Do you realize the number one cause of death from under the age of 45 in the United States is fentanyl related? So, which actually, Chief's going to come in tomorrow, and we're going to talk about fentanyl, because there was this little brochure thing that they had put online, and I think it's a serious thing that needs to be discussed. You had told me at one point, I think it was, that I should watch Dope Sick, which is on Hulu. So I've been watching that, and it's just unbelievable. So much of what they show is so correct, as the FDA was corrupt, and how these people, not just at the FDA, but in every one of these organizations, basically they will regulate a company and then suddenly go work for the company for 100 times what they get paid for when they're at that company. It's just crazy. And what OxyContin did to, we have a serious crisis in this country right now, drug use and opioid use, and it all stems from greedy pieces of shit at Purdue. Friggin' pharmaceutical company was one of them, which was the OxyContin. It was all about profits, and they went around everything they could to make money, lied about stats and everything, but to then have the White House say, "Oh, this is we're at historic lows."
Well, I just read some fact check to put it in context, is that they've confiscated a lot. So although the month of January saw a dramatic fall in fentanyl seizures down to 1,400 pounds from December's 6,200 pounds, it was still higher than any January on record.
Right. So say historic lows is complete bullshit, because historic lows would be like, oh yeah, 10 years ago when fentanyl wasn't in the country or wasn't a huge thing, right? It's just failure for them to do their job, and we are all going to pay the price for it.
So it says fentanyl crossing is not at a record low. Fentanyl seizures, on the other hand, are at an all-time high under the Biden administration.
Which would mean that it's not they're moving more. So it's like nothing you read is going to say, oh yeah, it's a crisis or historic lows.
This fact has had virtually no impact on the nation's drug crisis, indicating that massive amounts are still flowing across the border. And to be fair, all I did was type into it's either, I think I have Being Up, right? So this is just a general lazy person search, but it's the Washington Free Beacon, a fact check on.
What gets me is
on a fact check specifically on that. So all I did was type in fentanyl historic low, and this was like the third article.
So before COVID, literally right before COVID, the opioid thing was really starting to get tackled. It was getting a lot of press. The government was starting to really go after pharmaceutical companies and doctors that are overprescribing and whatever. And in some ways, they've gone way too far. And so now people that actually have pain aren't getting the medication they need. Seen that firsthand when my wife breaks her ankle and she needs surgery and they haven't fixed it yet, and then they send you home and say take Tylenol and Motrin, and like I don't know if you've ever broken a bone before, but no, I think that's a time that calls for medication that you need to control that pain. Now, if you've got a little toothache or headache, or you probably don't need 80 milligrams of OxyContin. So they did go, and
the pendulum swung back
right
so far the other way.
So now it swung so far that if you are someone who needs pain meds, because let's face it, everyone has pain at different levels. I mean, there's people that have chronic pain. I get it. But what they were doing before was basically making a bunch of addicts, and this is exactly what we have today. So most of these people that started out and that are addicted today, they started out on opioids that were prescribed to them, and then they become addicted, and they keep buying opioids off the market, right? You should get them illegally, and according to like Hulu, the show, like it's $1 a milligram. And obviously, if you know anything about drug use, the more you use, the more you get tolerance to it, and the more you have to keep taking it. It just steps up. Well, 99.9% of the people out there cannot afford to take pills every day and continue that because it's so expensive. So what happens is then they go from opioid prescription pills to heroin, because now a high, which is equal to what you were doing before, is $5 instead of maybe $100, $120, whatever. So the pharmaceutical company created this whole situation, and they were like, finally, I felt like justice maybe was going to really come down on this, and then COVID happens, and then poof. And when's the last time you heard anything about like, oh, hey, we're going to tackle this? Because it didn't change it. It probably made it worse during COVID, because now people that were struggling, had the hope factor was probably worse.
All the fear and isolation.
It's crazy. And then just like, it's a good show. Like if you have Hulu, watch it. I haven't finished the show, but it's insane, and so many historical fact things in this show. Where
they probably, obviously, because it's for entertainment. There's probably some historical license or whatever you want to call it, but the grand scheme of things is, the doctors were sold that it's not addictive, and then it is.
Yeah,
highly.
And in the show, one of the doctors, which is Michael Keaton, gets addicted. Like
so
hardcore.
He and his patients are both trying to figure out, like he was writing for his patients, and
like it's just total crazy. And if you really watch it, and I think between the fact that it's sad to see people suffering that are addicted to this, because that's the thing now. Everyone looks at it like, oh yeah, it's just some junkie. Well, that junkie, as you want to say,
start off with a broken arm.
Exactly, and that's someone's loved one. Some people do just go from they do no drugs to screw it, I'm going to try heroin. That happens, and I understand that. And there are some people out there that maybe fall in that category, like, you're just an alcoholic, or you're just a drunk, or you're a junkie on drugs. Like, there are some people that would just, I guess, fit in that category, okay? But to just randomly say yes, if you're hooked on heroin right now, it's just because you're a no good, weak person in society. When go ask him how did it started because I broke my leg and got addicted to pills, and then boom, here I am.
Next thing you know, you're riding the subway and they're giving you instructions on how to
safely do it.
How to safely do it instead of how to safely get off of it.
Yeah, it's just crazy, and it's sad. I mean, 2023, United States, we do nothing for our own people, and pharmaceutical companies totally created the situation. They should have to pay to get out of the situation. And I think they probably would have really started to pay, except then COVID happened. So then, like, for me, conspiracy person, and I'll totally say this is a conspiracy in my eyes, but I'm like, something like COVID would, as much as it would hurt Trump, if you stand to lose billions of dollars as a pharmaceutical company, mysteriously some virus comes out that I need to make a vaccine for, and I can make trillions off of that, I'd really make up for the money I just lost on opioids, or I was going to lose on opioids. And I said, that's my own little conclusion, and not saying it's right, but it sure does make you think.
Well, I mean, the issue it's the revolving door, just like we've talked about with the COVID-19 situation. But then you look at even back with the opioids, you still had the same thing going on where you flip-flop from FDA to the pharmaceutical company or CDC or NIH.
Yeah.
They're just interchangeable. They go from one to the other. So
Or Justice Department. So the head of the Justice Department in Maine, who was going after this hardcore, suddenly makes a deal with Purdue and then says, and this is Purdue Pharma, not the chicken, and then starts, he resigns from his job, starts private practice, and then is hired to represent Purdue. And the other thing that I didn't know, and I was watching the show last night, and I saw this, and I've always been a huge fan of Rudy Giuliani. I think the way he handled 9/11 and everything was great.
cleaned up New York City
Yeah. And then I kind of...
before 9/11.
Yes. And I kind of lost a little bit of respect for him, like Trump. With the whole thing with Trump, he kind of seemed a little more sleazy and stuff like that. But then I found out last night that he represented Purdue Pharma in this whole thing and then tried to use his influence in Washington to get them to not prosecute and all this stuff. And so now I have no respect for the man at all, and I think he's just a piece of shit. So
I just want to make sure that, so you're talking about a show,
yes,
right? So as I said, there's some historical license in there, but the show is based on the book Dope Sick, which was written by a journalist, and so it's, some facts or whatever may be off, right? Because they combine characters sometimes or everything else, but generally speaking, it follows the book written by journalist Beth Macy.
Right. It's not a documentary, but it's full of factual.
And I can tell you, I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, right along the Appalachian Trail, basically, Smoky Mountains, and they were handing a Percocet or whatever out like candy.
Yeah.
And so, when I was watching the show, I was like, holy cow, because I think they're in West Virginia,
Virginia.
Or is it Virginia or West Virginia?
It was Virginia, I believe.
I thought it was the coal mines of...
It was, but...
So maybe back and forth, but it's all...
Yeah, but it's based really heavily in Virginia and, like near Pennsylvania, in that area.
Kentucky?
Yeah, and basically it starts, like, it's like a little coal mine town, and, and this girl gets injured on the job, and then this miracle drug comes out called Oxycontin, and then just follows the whole story of Oxycontin, and it's insane. The sales tactics, it literally shows everything, and this happens still today, and just different meds, different, you know what I'm saying?
They have pharmaceutical salespeople that aren't even doctors. They're
all these
salespeople. They're like,
these people are salespeople, and the more milligrams they sold, the more money they made.
Right.
And the whole thing is so messed up. And at the end of the day, I believe Andrea was telling me that Purdue went bankrupt and stuff. So I haven't finished the show, but she also said she watched this thing called I think it was Pharma or Pharmacy, one or the other. On Netflix, she said you really need to watch it because the lady in the show, who's the assistant director of whatever in the DA, she's the highest female ranking in the whole DA at the time. She's in this other show discussing this. They're similar, and it's just remarkable because the things she ran into for roadblocks, things that should have taken them down way back then, she proved. These deaths where people literally just took exactly like they're supposed to and whatever. And the FDA would side with the pharma company, we don't see it that way. And just a struggle she went through to tackle this and go after this, and she'd have get all this factual stuff. And then these three U.S. justices in Virginia spent, I think it was 4 years building this case against these people. And they sent 4 U-Haul truckloads of information. And basically they overwhelmed them with everything. And then, but in time, these guys got through and proved that, the sales, the charts that they used for the FDA to to get it
It
passed.
was misleading
All-
because
it
even
was
the
a lie, yeah.
doctor that's played by Michael Keaton pushes back and is like, I don't think so. And then they show data and they convince him that it's not addictive. It's the greatest thing ever. And
Yeah.
anyway, it just shows you how we can get duped all for the love of money. People.
Yeah, and it was all about money, and that family, there's a family like we kind of talked about, I think in yesterday's show, like that, they have their rich art and they donate to all these things, but then they'd go into there was this petition that was signed by 10,000 people to sent to the FDA to force them to reformulate this because it's so addicting, even though they said it wasn't, and then suddenly they're like, well, we'd like to make a $100,000 donation to you.
Well, it also shows how the FDA relies on the pharmaceutical company to tell them that.
Yeah, it's not an
addictive.
oversight
The
board.
FDA doesn't test these drugs.
No, they
It's-
take their tests
They take whatever.
and say, oh, okay,
So the company proves
right.
that this is a viable, healthy, okay drug with minimal side effects.
And they also say that
And the FDA looks at their, data and analysis, I guess, allegedly, and then they approve it. Or
and
disapprove it.
they're saying this too. Typically, meds to come to the market, it's 15 years. It's a long process because of trials and all this stuff. And they managed to get this through faster. There was no trial. It was just some little article on a paper that they it's crazy. And and I'm sure there's things in there that aren't as accurate. As I was watching, I picked out stuff that I know is not to be necessarily true, but the point in the moral fabric of the whole thing and the thought, the whole thing points to exactly what we know happens. We talk about it all the time of the corruption of, so you worked for so and so and now you're a lobbyist, and it's just so corrupt.
Yeah, it's like the retired generals that are going on the news talking about how Ukraine needs tanks, but they also work for a company that builds tanks. Or
Right.
They're saying they need fighter jets, and then you find out that this general is on the Boeing board of directors or whatever. But they don't ever. The problem is not that they're on those boards, right?
No.
The problem is they don't disclose it. They don't say,
Right.
"Hey, truth in lending, I do sell tanks for a living."
Right.
They need tanks.
Right. No,
Right? They don't do that. So again, it goes back to the lies, the misremembering all the time, whatever. It's you lose trust, and then you become a cynic.
It's crazy.
And I like to think of myself trying to be positive, but when you see all this, and it's does anybody else see this? This is not right.
They see it. I mean, every freaking movie they make is about this stuff. TV shows,
No, but I mean, just in real life,
but you watch shows and it's everything you're saying. It's not like someone's fabricating and making all this stuff up. This literally is what is happening in our
Yeah,
world.
well, this is based on Dope Sick's based
Yeah.
on a journalist account of it.
Right. And it just blows my mind. I don't know. There's just no justice. I don't know. And we're still dealing with all this. Obviously, we're dealing with this in this country. It's worse now than ever because of fentanyl, which is made in China. I mean, people aren't being prescribed fentanyl. It's an illegal drug they've brought into the country
If they mix
from
in,
China, and now they're putting in stuff that your kid thinks they're taking a Xanax from somebody, and it has fentanyl in it. And they don't know it, of course, and then now they're dead, or they're smoking weed. Okay, you're not going to die from smoking weed. Oh, but it was laced with fentanyl because someone put fentanyl in it. And then people say, well, why would you do that? You're right. It doesn't make sense to me because if you're a drug dealer, it's a business. If your client dies, you don't sell any more drugs to them. That's bad for business. But half the time, these people don't know it. Or some of these people are like, well, we're trying to make our drug the best so you get a better high. But, okay, where's that line? Oh, sorry, I crossed it with that one.
it's sad.
It is.
If you need help, reach out to
Think about
all
Steve.
kinds of organizations.
Number
out there.
one cause of death from 45 years old and down, fentanyl. Number one cause, not suicide, not gun-related, not accidents, not cancer, not heart disease, not any of it. Fentanyl. Not heroin. Fentanyl. Fentanyl, fentanyl, fentanyl.
Just going to double check that. Number one killer,
Go ahead and check it.
45 and below, you said.
Saying this is a perfect timing to talk about this stuff because, like I said, we have Chief Leaf come in tomorrow.
Well, number one is drug overdoses.
Yeah, it's fentanyl. Have Chief Lee come in. We're going to talk about fentanyl and, try to have a serious conversation about it. Let your kids know and, like, really have that serious talk. And it's not like, I don't think any of the kids in Newport or anywhere around here are going to go to school tomorrow and be like, hey, got some fentanyl? It's not happening. The problem is they're going to school and like, hey, you got any Xanax? You got any of this? You got any of that?
Are they at our school?
What?
Or are you just saying in school in general?
As far as what?
When you said going to school tomorrow, you're not talking about in Newport, right? Like,
I'm just saying kids aren't going to school looking for fentanyl.
kids aren't going to look for drugs such as fentanyl.
Correct.
I mean, you're tying it to the school. I'm saying it's not school. It's in life in general.
Right. What I'm saying is if there's a kid in school tomorrow looking for drugs, okay, because that's reality of life, right? It happened when we were in school, happens now. But say they were looking for Xanax, right? They need to know the fact that...
Well, they shouldn't be looking for Xanax. We should be teaching them to cope, find other coping mechanisms.
And we could totally talk about that with Chief Lee, but that is reality. Or they want to smoke weed or have THC, THC dab pens or not dab pens, the vape cartridges or whatever. They're getting laced with fentanyl. So, like, you have to have these conversations with your kids. Like, oh yeah, your kid's gonna take this dab pen, or no, it's not a dab pen. Take a
Sorry,
like a vape pen. They're gonna take a hit off of it. The next thing you know, your kid's overdosing, and it's not the THC that's causing the overdose. It's the fact that there was fentanyl in it.
Yeah, that's why they had to just say no.
Yeah, it's just scary. Scary. It's crazy, Most of the time when people like overdose and stuff, it was like, okay, that person was an addict, they're using heroin or whatever, like but it's not the case anymore. It's turning to be more of, this kid or this college kid or whatever took some Xanax and come find out they were not regular Xanax pills. They were, made in Mexico and mixed with fentanyl or whatever. Or the Claremont Police Department had a release not long ago we talked about on the show where some name of this marijuana was going around that apparently was laced with fentanyl, So no, it would be a good conversation to have with the chief tomorrow, talk about it, and see. Obviously, he knows more about this stuff than we do, and if there's anything we can do to help the situation. It's tough because it's really a big national, like, okay, if you didn't have a wide open border and you crush China, it would slow it down, but I don't know. All right, I'll skip the other one. I've got, where is it? I'm sorry. Well, actually, here's something to talk about real quick. Saw this thing from the Center of Immigration Studies. Biden administration lost nearly 20,000 migrant children. The alien minors released since the inauguration would be the 18th largest U.S. school district, costing taxpayers $4.6 billion. Sorry, that got me confused. But anyways, so apparently we've misplaced a bunch of kids. Yeah, that's nice.
It's sad.
Yeah. It's
Well, what's sad is that we're all sitting here talking about it, and no one's doing anything about it. We just let it keep happening.
Yeah.
Even though the majority, I would say the majority, it would be like, I don't think anybody's against immigration or asylum seeking. I have issue with fighting age men seeking asylum.
Yeah.
Because just as they're supposed to rise up and protect and defend, so are we. So that's why
I don't know.
Your border's being overrun. I don't understand why there's not.
Listen,
The Texas Rangers doing a call to arms for all Texas citizens to go and defend the border. Like,
remember that poll not long ago that
and when I say defend, if you just showed up with force, there wouldn't have to be any violence or anything. Everybody would be like, well, I guess this is over with. That's not to say there wouldn't be, possibly, but you know what I mean? You get a large group. To me, it just seems like that's what would end this quickly, would be governors. But then again, we go back to the point of having a federal government.
yeah, they just don't.
The point of having a constitutional republic, not a democracy. There's nothing that makes me want to vomit more than listening to everybody. It's a threat to our democracy. There's no democracy here. Democracy is mob rule. Like, go and take a freaking civics class, man. Like, all these people that talk bad about our system of governance, like, they obviously have not studied it. They've listened to sound bites on TikTok videos or YouTube videos. They have not read and studied with the importance of having the system of governance that we have. And it's not a democracy. There's nothing more offensive that makes me want to projectile vomit at the TV screen than watching Chuck Schumer crying about threats to democracy or anyone else. Like, I don't care what political party you are. It's not a democracy. It's so disgusting.
Yeah, it's a constitutional republic. We are based on the Constitution and laws, and that is how our system works. Not like a democracy, we vote for officials and whatever.
No.
We're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
You know how many people don't know that?
A lot.
And you know why that
That's
is?
why I just went into a diatribe. I'm sure our viewers all know, but
The dumbing down of America. Because the less you know, the easier you are to manipulate.
I know. Hey, if I had my way, we would be doing tax classes. By the time you leave high school, you will be able to get all the tax break that the rich people get, because we should be teaching kids to pay very little in taxes, just like all the rich people do.
Yeah.
You should graduate and be like, I can prepare my own taxes. I don't need H&R Block. I can do it myself. And I can do it better because I have the resources. Now, don't get me wrong. You can go teach yourself this kind of stuff. But to me, it would be awesome to be 18 years old. And granted, when you're that young, you're probably not going to be paying a lot of taxes. You're not, unless you invent something or inherit a large sum of money or a house.
What gets me is the people that fall for that crap when politicians, and it's ours Democrats or liberals, talking about, we're going to tax the rich, we're going to tax the rich. I'm like,
The rich don't.
they are the rich.
Well, yeah. Well, number one, they need to tax themselves, but they're going to have a litany of lawyers that are going to find every loophole and probably not even affect their tax payments. But me and you will, better.
Do you think they're going to hire 87,000 IRS?
Your brother paid you back for going and buying stuff on Venmo? You better account to that to the IRS. No.
And he purchased more than $600. We want to look at that.
Yeah, that's going to happen. And I probably don't have the receipts anymore. But you know what I mean? But like, because I helped him with his house, when he was getting it ready to rent. So I went and bought a bunch of blankets and everything. Went to the old Ocean State. Got soaps and cleanings. You know what I mean? Like, I bought everything that you would need to prep a house and get it ready to rent. And then they paid me back on Venmo. I'm like, man, could you send me like cash or something?
Yeah, they're not after you, Steve.
Oh yeah, they'll be. I mean, did I not see that they're going to base audits on race? I'm not making that up. I mean, because I know we're wrapping it up, but let me look, because I don't want to come across. I don't want somebody to be like, "You're making that up."
Pretty sure I've heard that before.
Let's see here. IRS to audit based on.
I mean, they hire federal positions based on race.
The new executive order indicates the Biden administration plans to change IRS audit algorithms to target white, Asian, or mixed-race taxpayers when read in light of the Department of Treasury's continuous efforts to racialize tax policy. But to be fair, the stats show that blacks right now are more likely to get audited. Right, so like I'm not saying there's not an issue. I don't like the IRS in general. Like I remember the Boston Tea Party. I remember taxation without representation. You know what I mean? So I don't want to discredit if the stats show that. That's BS, obviously. Like it should be based on. Like, why are you auditing me?
I have a question.
Like, how about? So I went to a college that said be honorable, you know. Duty, honor, country, those types of things. Like you're assumed that everybody tells the truth. You always tell the truth. And then the rest of society operates that everybody's a liar. And even when I got into the Army, everybody operated with like, are you sure? You know, like, you think I'm just sitting here lying to you? Like, why would I lie? You will find out a lie. Lies always get brought to light.
I don't understand how people... So if black Americans are getting audited more than any other race, how is that? Because when I do my taxes, I don't remember.
Well, this was
my
published
race
by
being on
CBS
there.
News, so I don't know how legitimate it is. But there is a study out there that says that some Americans have a greater risk of seeing an audit. The higher audit rate for black taxpayers is due to a flawed AI algorithm relied on by the IRS to decide who gets audited. So how does an algorithm...
So you built an algorithm in there basically
to target
skin color?
I don't know how, like, I'm sure it's...
Who are the real racists in this country? Maybe the ones that just made that, you know, AI thing that, like, you're taxing... This is about taxes and everything, but skin color comes into play?
This is a CBS News report, so I just want to make sure, because I opened up a can of worms here. Study, which taps data from more than 148 million anonymous returns, offers suggestions for how the IRS might fix the disparity, including focusing on auditing filers with complicated returns. Well, that's who you would think that they would audit, is like the more complicated it is. And here's my whole issue with everything. Like, why isn't it just on trust? Like, hey, this is what I made, this is what I'm paying you. Because people will cheat, right? Obviously, people are going to cheat, but like now it's legal to cheat if you know how to cheat.
Yeah, as long as you know the loopholes.
Right, and that's what I mean when I say cheat. I'm saying maximization of loopholes. Equitable enforcement. There's equity, which I believe it shouldn't be based on race or anything else. So, now it sounds like they're going to put it into the. So how would they get? That's what's confusing. Mixed race. Like, so are they going to collate the data with the census? Because if you recall, in the last census, they asked you to put down your heritage, if you know it, right? So a guy like me that's like British, Dutch, they're like, audit him.
Yeah, so what they'll do
Scottish, whatever.
You'll have, I guess what they'll have to do in the future here is they will have someone, you're up for audit, and then you'll have to like send in a thing, and if you're, more than 46.2% African American, then you're going to not get the audit. But if you're less than that, or whatever.
Well, they won't give away the secret, but it said the program prioritizes small dollar, high certainty audit cases and places less emphasis on how much a filer is claiming in income. Black taxpayers tend to make the types of mistakes that the IRS historically has focused on. So an example would be claiming dependents. The IRS focuses very heavily on ensuring that dependents that are claimed for the purposes of EITC meet the eligibility criteria.
Okay, so...
But that happens against all races.
All right, no.
Because that happens in divorce settlements and...
We're going to look at this, what you just said, okay? That article just said that black people don't know how to do their taxes and because they can't calculate dependents. So apparently they can't fucking add how many kids they have.
No. So what it is I saw it in the...
More often, black people can't... they get it wrong, is what that article said. Just like black people, they get struggle
Oh,
for
yeah.
their licenses.
They tend to make mistakes.
Says who?
See, so when I encountered the dependent thing, because it would come up. So in the military, you have stricter rules, right? We don't just follow the normal laws. We also have the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Anyway, so when somebody gets divorced, depending on the custody arrangements, like that would be a big thing of filing a dependent, right? So the wife has
trust me, I went through
51
this.
right. So that's the cases. So but it didn't. My experience was it didn't matter. Like I can't tell you what the races were. It happened all ranks, right? Like it didn't matter if you were an officer or enlisted. There was always conflicting where one would try to, and then there would be issues. Issues could arise from that when you both file and claim dependents. That's what they're talking about. So the mom and the dad both claim it, the child as a dependent or the children as dependents, and then the IRS is like, wait a second, I have this Social Security number here and here, and so to me that's what they're saying is that there's more of a preponderance for both parents to claim a child.
All right, so I just
wanted to go into a deeper conversation so that
any listeners out
I wasn't
there,
making a generalization that
any listeners out there that are
IRS agents.
no, yeah, you're an IRS agent. Fuck yourself. No, any listeners out there that are Black Americans, okay, not mixed, because we just read a study. Don't pay your taxes because they're racist motherfuckers, and we have a story that back it up. And the rest of you just stop paying your taxes because they don't give a crap about you or anything else going on. They need the money to put in their own pockets and send to Ukraine and whatever.
So send to Ukraine or launder through Ukraine?
Well,
allegedly
launder, but pisses me off.
No,
Right.
I get what you're saying. It's like there's nothing more offensive than to listen to someone who, because we say something like, just because I'm reading this article, right? So then they can be like, oh, you're racist. But then
Fuck you, that article is racist.
But then they'll be the same ones that say, well, we can't have voter ID because it's harder for Black Americans to get an ID. Like, what the freak is that all about?
The most racist.
That to me is
the most racist.
I don't know if it's racist, but it's pretty much insulting.
The most racist people in this country are these people that say this crap right here and then try to say me and you are racist because we call them out for it. You're trying to tell me Black Americans aren't smart enough to get IDs, and that makes it racist and voter suppression. That is a racist statement, is incorrect, and is absolute bullshit. And nobody calls them out on it. Yet they'll call me and you out for reading an article that literally says, basically, that blacks can't get their dependents right on their taxes, so we audit them more. So we need to change this. That also is racist.
Because I like I said, I encountered that like during tax season.
Because how the hell does your race come into your taxes?
Well, that's yeah.
How does your race come into anything?
Is that even on the 10? Is that on?
I've never seen it.
1040. I mean,
it's been a while since I've done it, so maybe it's in there. But what difference? Why does the IRS care? Here's your Social Security number. This is your taxes. Blah blah blah. It's about money and how much money they can screw out of you. But why do I care what race you are?
Oh.
Why does the AI program care what race you are? Unless you're racist.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I
And who the hell decides mixed race or not?
Yeah.
What's the formula for that?
That's weird. Like what mixed races? Like,
so is it like white mom, black dad? Yes, off limits completely. But is it Hispanic, dad and black mom? And then it's like, is that more like? Is there a percentage for that too? Is there a certain like?
I have no idea, man. I'm just reading you the CBS News article.
Once again, it's just about
available on CBSNews.com if you want to read it for yourself.
It's just about division and trying to divide people and distract them from the fact that you shouldn't be paying the IRS to start with because they don't represent you anymore.
It was published on February 1st, 2023, and it was written by Christopher J. Brooks. To give Christopher credit for his article.
All right. Meme of the day, then we're out here. This will piss some people off, maybe. The view of Joe Behar without makeup, with makeup. Look, 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 look.
Well, man, I loved that movie when I was a kid.
Which one was in the movie? I can't remember. You see that Whoopi's contract's not getting renewed? Maybe it has something to do with the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse just settled. They have to pay him $22 million in a formal written apology. They've been bitching about trying to get Whoopi for years. This other clown I just showed you needs to go too. The whole show needs to go. It's a joke.
Yeah, I can't believe
View. The View of what?
I don't, man.
Over medicated females that are bitching about everything.
I don't know if I'd go that. If I'd say that, but I would say that I.
And they've had a few on there that have
It's
been
been
decent.
on like for 20 years or so, and so I think I might have tried to watch for like 6 minutes, and I was like, God, this is.
But it drastically got worse. Like,
No, but I mean, I'm saying 20 years ago when I tried to watch it. Like, I've seen clips now where, like, what was his name? Norm Macdonald went on there and pissed them all off. Like, that's kind of funny. So, I mean, I've seen some clips of The View, but my most knowledge I have of The View comes from Saturday Night Live skits in the early 2000s where they made fun of The View. Like, or late night, whenever it came on. Like, that, to me, really is my...
Like, seriously, who watches that?
I feel bad if they do because they're I don't know.
If that show
It's
comes
not
on, it changes the channel immediately, or I get up and leave the room if it was somewhere like, because I won't listen to it. I won't.
Yeah, I remember that might have been on one time when I was waiting to get a X-ray or something.
Yeah.
And I was in a military hospital. I went over and I was like, you need to put this on
Yeah.
an all news channel. I can't watch. This is garbage, man.
Yeah. Crazy.
I had them turn it off. Because like my blood pressure was getting.
Because they're dumb and everything they say is stupid. And
So
yeah,
see, like I won't say things like that. I will say
will.
that they know exactly what they're saying. They're divisive, and they don't really care about the truth all the time. Because sometimes I've seen articles or watched little clips or whatever where they just spew out whatever. Well, case in point is the Rittenhouse thing, right? I don't know, they must have really attacked him.
oh yeah, they said it, yeah. Said he was a murderer and all this stuff, and I
They didn't even throw out an alleged.
I don't think so. They don't seem to do that.
Everything I talk about is allegedly because I don't know. The only thing I know is what I do, and what you know what I'm saying. Like at the end of the day, like I hear things, and then you and I can hear the same exact conversation and come away with two different, end results depending on the intensity and the subject matter and everything else. You know what I mean? So like, for me, everything's allegedly.
I know someone that have conversations like that and come out with two different things.
Well, one side always misremembers. Just remember that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Remember tonight, school board meeting, 5 o'clock with Thompson Room. Voting next Tuesday. And we'll be back on tomorrow with Chief Lee and talk about fentanyl. And I also want to talk about House bill that is up in New Hampshire about qualified immunity. And so maybe we'll hit on that just a little bit too. But definitely want to focus on the fentanyl thing and, any tips or any kind of things that...
Any things going on around town that we need to be aware about?
Yeah, any of that kind of stuff that we can share.
That was a good conversation we had with him a few weeks ago, and
It was really good. It was good. So
looking forward to it.
absolutely. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and talk to you tomorrow.